If not, I'm recording it. So
Oh, okay.
it says live preparing. So if not, I'll run it as a special. So
Okay.
because I'm great with dogs. I am not so great with this whole computer thing.
Me
So
either.
yeah,
No,
it's crazy. So
you're
um,
ahead of me.
yep.
You do
So
this.
hopefully we are doing our Facebook Live, and this is one of my favorite topics right now. It is working on crate issues and separation issues, and I'm very pleased to have with me Phyllis Zboril, who is the owner of Go Dog Training. She is also a certified trainer for training and counseling from the Academy of Dog Trainers. And more importantly, she is a certified separation anxiety trainer, and there are not a lot of those around. So at Two Paws Up Dog Training, we take advantage of this relationship, and we love to send people Phyllis's way. Phyllis is also the former animal enrichment and behavior manager at Anderson Animal Shelter. So there's a lot of background here with Phyllis, both on the behavior side and the training side. So welcome, Phyllis. Thanks for agreeing to do this with me. I'm so excited.
Well,
So,
thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and I really appreciate the referrals you've been giving me and all the wonderful clients I've had a chance to work with. It's been really awesome.
and the nice part about this is we know how much you're helping them, and we feel very empowered that we have this relationship, and it's really all about the clients, and it's really all about helping them and helping their dogs. So again, I love having the relationship. So tell us, what does a certified separation anxiety trainer actually do?
Okay, well, I will get clients that contact me, a lot of your referrals. There's behaviors that they'll report that sound like their animals are experiencing difficulty being left alone. Oftentimes that's lots of vocalization. Neighbors will be complaining in apartments and townhouses that the dog is crying all day. The owners will sometimes monitor the dogs via remote video and report, pacing. There'll be scratching at the door, destruction, especially at exit points. The dog is basically panicking. Some dogs will refuse to take food, they'll drool, and just a lot of upset behaviors. So when I get those calls, those contacts, I usually set up an assessment with people so I can view the dog via remote video to confirm that, because some puppies or some dogs are just untrained and they're just bored, left alone. So we do need to, rule that out. So if I do see that the puppies and the dogs do seem like they're upset, we start working on desensitization protocols, which I give clients assignments, and we do this all remotely. So via Google Sheets, I will help clients get their dogs acclimated to being left alone.
And you brought up a really good point there, because we tend to think of separation anxiety as being an adult dog issue. But puppies can also have some issues with separation, correct?
Oh, for sure. And I keep saying puppies because I have so many puppies that I'm
Yeah.
working with right now. So I keep saying puppies because that, to me, it's just a puppy problem right now. But yeah, it's any age, and especially puppies, because all puppies do suffer from some degree of separation anxiety when they're little. It just isn't normal for them to be left alone. Evolution has because of evolution, we have dogs that will, be upset when they're left alone because they're vulnerable to predators, many years ago. So it is perfectly normal, and they do need to get acclimated to being left alone, because it is not a natural state for a puppy as young as we get them to live in
By themselves,
by
yeah, or
themselves.
or
Yeah,
or without another dog or an adult dog present. So, and
exactly.
is there a difference between separation anxiety, and there's a new term that a lot of trainers are using called isolation distress? So is there a difference between those two phrases as from the behavioral side?
Well, isolation distress is really, when we talk about separation anxiety, we're usually talking about isolation distress. And that's just distress that the dog experiences when they're left alone, that they're isolated. And we often will refer to that as separation anxiety, but separation anxiety, that term really means that the dog has an issue being separated from a particular person. So the dog is not okay when that person is gone, no matter who's in the room. Where isolation distress, most of those dogs are okay being left alone with, or not being left alone, as long as somebody's there, and it doesn't really matter. Sometimes they do better with one particular person being home with them, and maybe they'll experience a little bit of stress when that special person leaves. But for the most part, isolation distress is a dog that can't handle being left alone. Separation anxiety is a particular attachment they have to somebody, and they have issues when that person leaves. But we refer to all of them as separation anxiety for the most part.
Got it. And I think that clarifies it. And I know that we've received a lot of cases over the years of separation anxiety where there's defecation or elimination, or there's destruction, as you mentioned, at the doorways where you clearly the dog has tried to either follow that person out or tried to get out of the house to follow that person. What are some of the other signs that maybe our clients can look for that indicate that their dog might need help from, you as a certified separation anxiety trainer?
Sure. So all the things you listed, and those are some of the more extreme examples, but if your dog's not relaxing when you're gone, if they're not laying down, even laying down by the door sometimes, dogs will do that and fall asleep, but you'll see pacing, sometimes drooling, lots of yawning, restlessness type of stuff. The urination and defecation, you want to ask yourself, is this dog house trained? Because that could just be a house training issue. So you definitely want to make sure that that's ruled out. Not eating is another thing. So oftentimes people's dogs will seem to be having trouble being left alone, and they'll try to give them a bone or a stuffed Kong or rawhide, and the dog won't touch it until they get back. Sometimes the dogs are just jumping up on the door. They're running around, pacing back and forth. Almost always vocalization. But even as those things, when I'm working with dogs, start to dissipate, we'll see less vocalization, but we'll see other signs of stress that we look for, such as yawning, which a lot of people, I know a lot of trainers know that, yawning can be a stress signal. That doesn't mean if your dog yawns when you're gone that they're experiencing separation anxiety, but that does indicate, a mild level of stress. So you want to be aware of the dog's body language in
Sure.
its entirety.
And I think my family would say that my dog Lena suffers from a little bit of stress when I leave. She looks out the window and she'll do some yawning. But then again, as long as somebody else is here, she tends to settle in. And I know one of the things that I've done with her, if I'm going to be gone for an extended period of time, is I leave one of my shirts so that she can actually sleep on my shirt in the bed. Otherwise, because she sleeps in the bed with me. Otherwise, she's kind of back and forth and pacing in the bed all night, staring at the door, wondering when I'm coming into the bed. And so little things like that can also indicate that there may be some sort of a challenge for that dog, correct?
For sure. Yeah, most definitely.
And one of the things that I know people are hesitant to consider or hesitant to even talk about is medication for some of these dogs. We used to, on the veterinary side, we used to say, try this, let's do some, desensitization and counter conditioning to departure cues. And then if that doesn't work, we'll consider medication. What's your view on that?
So anytime a client contacts me, I do ask if they've discussed this with their vet, and the decision whether to put the dog on medication is entirely up to the veterinarian. But I do let people know that that is an option to talk to their vet and to see if your vet thinks that it's appropriate, because it can be really helpful. There's different kind of medications out there, and the vet is the expert on that. However, there are different things. Some of them sedate the dogs, but there's some that don't. And I think a lot of people are worried that they're going to give their dog something that's going to change their personality and the temperament. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Sometimes all they do is just take that edge off and make the training process a lot easier and go more smoothly. So they should always talk to their vet if they feel like they're comfortable with that option,
The medication option.
the
Great.
medication option. Yeah.
Yeah, and so one of the things that we get as dog trainers is we get people that say, I think my dog has some separation anxiety issues. How do I train the dog to be comfortable being alone? And is it possible to train the dog to be comfortable alone? And I think that's where you come in, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So it is possible. Lots of dogs, get over separation anxiety. I think there was some research done where they said 73%,
Wow.
which might not sound that high, but really is kind of high
Yeah.
considering, I don't, with these dogs are not necessarily, in formal training or with certified separation anxiety trainers. So if you get somebody on board that really knows what they're doing, I'm sure it's got to be much higher than that. And the process that we use, it is training. It's training using desensitization, which is a method of getting, we use it for people too, of helping desensitize fears and phobias.
Hmm.
And what that means is you start to expose the dog or the person that has the extreme phobia to whatever they're afraid of in itty bitty, teeny tiny doses, so that you're not doing it to the point where they're afraid, and then you gradually increase at the dog's comfort level. So if it was a person, if they were afraid of a spider, you're not going to put them in a room full of spiders or put a
Right.
tarantula on their lap and say, here, it's harmless, it's not going to hurt you, because that is not going to help. You're probably going to run
Right.
out of the room and you've totally blown your relationship with your therapist.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it might start out with a spider that you're looking at the spider, at a distance, and it might not be a real spider. It might be a cartoon looking stuffed animal spider. And with separation anxiety, it's usually duration. It might start out where we'll just have the person walk to the door and turn the doorknob, because some dogs will panic at that point.
Sure.
Sometimes just picking up the keys, picking up your purse, putting on a particular pair of shoes. So, and that's where the assessment comes in, to figure out what these triggers are and at what point we can start the desensitization process. And then we go from there.
And just like much that we deal with in dog behavior, it's not a quick fix, but if you do it right, the results are long lasting.
Exactly. It definitely is not a quick fix. And everybody that I speak to, when I do 30-minute free phone consultations, and I can bet money that they're going to say, how long is this going to take? And
Hmm.
unfortunately, there never is a set answer, and averages really don't give anybody any useful information, because no dog is average. But I do like to tell people, generally it's months as opposed to weeks. But there is progress usually, and there's peaks and valleys as well. It's not always linear. There can be little bits of setbacks, regressions, plateaus. We look for trends.
Okay.
So today I went over. I had my first 4 weeks with a couple, and we went over the trend, and we realized we went from 17 seconds to 3.5 minutes. I called it. The dog didn't even panic at 3.5 minutes. And it might not sound like a lot, 3.5 minutes, but if you figure how many times 17 is 3 minutes, I don't know, but
Right.
um,
It's a large difference.
a large difference. Yeah. And it tends to be sort of exponential. So, we're adding seconds in the beginning, but, later on we're adding minutes, and then larger increments, maybe 15 minutes, then maybe half-hour increments. And, then you reach your goal at 4 hours, and I'm still working with people, and maybe they'll go out to dinner and I'll be watching their dog for 4 hours on video to make sure they're okay. So,
That's amazing, and I love those kind of cases where you actually see the progress and you see the clients reach their goals. I have
oh, it's great.
similar, yeah, I have similar challenges on the aggression and reactivity side of training and behavior modification. So when you do have those small little improvements, we rejoice, and then we watch those small little improvements turn into big, long lasting changes, which is great. So,
Exactly. This
um,
dog today, just wanted to mention,
yeah,
laid down for the first time.
yay.
And I was like almost in tears. And then he laid down with his head up, and then he put his head down. I was like, oh, I'm going to cry. So, yeah, you're right. It's those little things. And
And
the
people,
clients feel the same way, you know.
yeah, and people don't realize, but we do get emotional about these things as trainers. We're invested in the process just like the owners are. So,
Oh,
um,
yeah, sometimes more.
exactly. That could be a whole nother topic that we could go into down the road. So we're seeing a lot of pandemic puppies now who are having difficulty when the owners are out of the picture. We're starting to go back out and eat out a little bit more, and we're starting to see kids going back to some of the activities. Do you have any advice for pet parents that are kind of in that pandemic puppy stage where either they're noticing that they're having to go out more or they know that that's going to happen in the future?
Yeah, good question. So seeing, yeah, a lot of puppies and people telling me that they got their puppy in April and they just tried to leave it for the first time yesterday.
Hmm.
So you really need to start training now and getting that puppy acclimated to being left alone. And I would recommend doing desensitization where you're leaving for brief periods of time at the puppy's comfort level. Let the puppy set the pace. Don't be gone longer than the puppy can handle. They're not just going to bark it out, cry it out. So you can set up a remote camera and leave your house and see how your puppy does. And, if they can handle 15 minutes and then they start to panic, you might want to start leaving them for 12 minutes, sort of below the threshold at which they panic, and start to gradually increase the duration. That would be for a normal puppy that just needs to be trained to be left alone.
Hmm.
If you're seeing separation anxiety, it's not just increasing the duration gradually. There's a lot more to it. So it's maybe a good idea to consult a trainer. I think any trainer, any positive reinforcement trainer could look at a video and let you know whether or not this puppy looks like they're in trouble or not. So
Absolutely. And along that lines, can we talk very briefly about that transition point of bringing a puppy from the breeder or bringing the puppy home for that first, that first day or two, and how difficult just that transition can be, because there's some separation issues that can happen in those first, 12 or 16 or 24 hours for puppies.
yeah, for sure. So you want to help the puppy out as much as possible. And I know that a lot of breeders will sometimes give something that smells like the mother so that can help comfort the puppy. Whether it works or not, I don't know if there's any research on that, but it seems to make sense that the smell of the mother could be reassuring to the puppy. You also, you want to take it slowly. You don't want to think that you can bring your puppy home, put him in a crate, and then go out to dinner, to celebrate your new puppy. Yeah, you've got to really make sure that the puppy's comfortable every step of the way. You've got to crate train. Can't expect your puppy to just be put in a crate and be comfortable. So the crate training and the isolation training really has to be done separately. You're going to be getting your puppy used to being in a crate. Then you're going to get your puppy used to you leaving. You need to bond with that puppy though. So I would say give yourself enough time. If you know you're bringing a new puppy home, do it when you're taking a vacation or you have a long weekend so that you can spend time with that puppy and get them to bond with you and make them as comfortable as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's also I don't know if you've heard of the Adaptil collars.
Hmm. Yep.
And they've got a puppy version, which is a collar that emits synthetic pheromones that the mother emits that helps calm the puppies. So the Adaptil Junior collar can be helpful for that as well. But definitely be prepared, to spend a lot of time with that puppy. It's a lot of work initially, just like having a baby.
And we've had really good success with the cuddle puppies that have the heartbeat in them. And we've had a lot of good success with some of these puppies
Yeah.
coming home and having difficulty. And, we'll send them out to PetSmart to get a cuddle puppy. And then they suddenly feel like, oh, I've got this, comforting other buddy here that's with me. So I think sometimes that can make a big difference as
Yeah, I think
well for
that
these guys.
tactile is important important, because they're used to snuggling with their litter mates and their moms. So having lots of comfy bedding and comforting smells, whether it's the adaptable collar or something that the mother had worn, or like you had said, if you're going to have your puppy sleep in a crate, you can put your scent. Once the puppy's
Mhm.
bonded with you, put a t-shirt that smells like you into the crate that you've been wearing. That can help as well.
Sure. And so here is the $1 million question that we battle frequently on the subject of confinement. So, is confining a puppy cruel? Is crating a puppy cruel? And you said, you have to crate train first, and then you also have to teach the isolation part of it. So, what's your thought on using a crate versus confinement of some other form for puppies?
So crates are absolutely, I mean, they could be cruel, but if you leave the puppy in there way too long, I've seen people that think they can crate their dog for 10 hours straight. And I would say that's cruel.
Yes.
However, I would say it's cruel not to crate a puppy because you're really setting them up for failure and it's actually dangerous. And a puppy can any dog can absolutely be trained to be comfortable in a crate if it's done right. I should say most dogs. And if I've had, especially when I worked at Anderson, we'd have adopters that were like, no, we don't want to crate train.
Hmm.
But what if your dog gets sick and they have to go to the vet? You don't want to find out your dog has confinement anxiety when they're already stressed out because they have to spend the night at the vet's office.
Right.
So if your intention is to not have your dog crated, at least get them comfortable in a crate, so that you can, if they ever do have to be crated, or if you need to leave them with somebody who needs to confine them.
Or
So
travel with them where they
or
need to
travel with them.
go,
Yeah. If you
into
need
some sort of confinement.
exactly. So no, crates are really wonderful tools. They're great for house training as well because most dogs will not relieve themselves, even young puppies. If the crate is small enough, they're not going to relieve themselves in the crate. So it's a great house training aid. So I would say everybody should crate train, whether or not they think they're going to want to use a crate or not.
And what about the let the puppy cry it out strategy? I put the puppy in the crate and the puppy starts to cry. A lot of trainers will say, well, you just have to let the puppy cry it out.
Yeah.
What's your thought on that strategy?
Yeah, no, I don't recommend that at all. In fact, there's been research on animals and people that show that, that's not a good thing. That's going to cause a lot of stress. We know that stress can affect the immune system. We know that stress can get worse if we
Mhm.
allow it to keep happening. So we don't want to let the puppies cry it out. Now, sometimes when you put a puppy in a crate, they might whimper for a minute or so and then lay down and fall asleep, maybe bark for attention. That's a little bit different than panicking, but that is a sign that maybe you do need to go back and help your puppy out a little bit. But once your puppy is in a state of panic, absolutely you don't want them to cry it out because they usually won't. And so then you've got a puppy that not only is afraid of the crate but now they've got other issues.
Right.
So never a good idea.
Yeah. And I think we're with you on that too. There's a big difference in my opinion for the puppy that just goes, "Hey, I don't want to be in here." Okay, fine. Versus an I've never been crated before. I don't understand what's going on, and that escalation of behavior that goes along with stress. So I'm all along with you on that same line of not letting new puppies cry it out when they're kind of first in that crate. So, um, and you said it really well. Be prepared when you have this new puppy coming home, to bond with it, and be prepared to do it on a long weekend or take a vacation block of time. And we're seeing a lot of first time puppy owners during the pandemic, and I'm sure you probably are as well, who are sleep deprived because, as you and I know, puppies can't hold it 8 or 10 hours when they're, 8 weeks old. And so the overnight hours can become a little challenging from the perspective that I don't think people are really, I don't think they're prepared to get up in the middle of the night. Any advice on the overnight thing for young puppies?
Right. Well, first, I think, like you said, you've got to prepare yourself mentally for this. You've
Right.
got to accept the fact that you're probably going to be losing some sleep, just like if you brought a baby
Maybe
home.
home. Right.
Yeah. You want to make sure that your puppy is comfortable in the crate before you leave them in the crate all night. So you can set up a area. I love puppy pens. I think they're good for so many purposes. Or you can try the crate if your puppy's tired enough and they're used to their, you get them have a special blanket that they've been laying on. You can put that in the crate and see how they do. But expect that your puppy is probably going to get up every couple of hours and they're going to need to go to the bathroom. I would recommend feeding your puppy maybe a couple of hours before they go to sleep. So if you're feeding dinner at 5, they might need a little something to eat at like 8 o'clock. Make sure they go out before you put them to sleep. And make sure that everything is really comfortable for them. Like you said, you can use those stuffed dogs with the heartbeat, the adaptable collars, and just plan on, getting up and losing some sleep. And maybe
Sleep
you're going to
better.
have to take some naps, just like you do when you have a new baby. I personally put my puppies in my bed. And I know a lot of people say, no, you don't want to do that because then they're going to be in the bed. I value my sleep. I'm a sleeper. So
Yep.
every puppy I've ever brought home goes in my bed, but that's me,
Right.
And then I don't have a problem if they want to sleep with me forever. And I find that most of them don't. I have 3 dogs now, and really only one of them will get up in the bed with me. And I didn't have him as a puppy, and I doubt he slept in a bed as a puppy.
Sure.
Because he was a hunting dog from Oklahoma. So,
Yep.
if you're stressed out because you can't sleep, and if you can put the puppy in the bed, they usually will sleep longer. And so I don't know how you feel about that, but I'm just all about sleep.
Well, and actually that's a good segue into my next question, because I tend to see a lot of owners who, they get up and they're sleep deprived and they take the puppy out, and then they lay on the couch with the puppy, near them. And so what the puppy learns very quickly is, I'm very comfortable when you're there, but the owners don't necessarily want to continue to sleep on the couch long term. And I
Sure.
think that can create some additional challenges, because at some point, then we have to break that circle of getting up and going and sleeping next to you on the couch. So, I have dogs that sleep in the bed with me, and again, I'm not one of those trainers, nor are you, that says, oh my gosh, you're going to create this horrible, monster because you're allowing them in the same bed as you. One of my go-to strategies, if possible, is to put the crate in the room where you are, because the puppy will sleep longer. And it's very similar to that. I've never actually brought a puppy into the bed with me, and it's interesting. I always think, oh my gosh, I'm going to roll over on it and squish it, or some of those bad things that can happen.
Well, the puppy could fall off out of bed too. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
there can be some things that you have to take into consideration.
Yeah, but again, I think it speaks to the comfort that the puppies get from being, with a human, or being with us, with that bond. Um, and the difficulty becomes if we have to break that habit, if you will, of getting up and then going and sleeping with the owner. I think it can be a harder transition later on to break that particular habit. Do you agree with that?
Well, sure. I think you do want to take that into consideration. So if you're not going to sleep with your dog, then and you don't want them in the bed, you might, like, if you want your dog to sleep downstairs in a crate while you're upstairs in your bedroom, you might want to start out by bringing the crate into the bedroom. So maybe putting the dog on the bed isn't the option, because that's one thing you're going to have to undo. But having the dog in a crate next to your bed, you can gradually start to move them out of the bedroom. I do feel like that has worked for a lot of people that have
Mhm.
told me their dogs have issues. They're maybe in a crate downstairs and they bring them upstairs. And once the puppy matures too, oftentimes they will have an easier time adjusting to being alone. And if you've got to do something to keep them from panicking, and try
Right.
to do the least intrusive thing for you, don't put them in the bed if you don't
Yeah,
want them in the bed.
in the bed.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
and I have had puppies pee on my bed. So But I do find that they will sleep if I have a puppy with me. I'll usually put pillows and barriers, and they will usually sleep about 6, 7 hours.
Yeah,
So
which
if
is
you're
great.
sleep, yeah, if you're sleep deprived and you got to do that, I say the same thing with human babies. It's a
Hmm.
personal choice.
Decision.
But if you're a sound sleeper and you're going to roll over and it's a Chihuahua puppy, that's another consideration.
Yeah, yeah.
You
Versus a Great Dane or a Newfoundland.
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you have a favorite crate training protocol that you use, or do you find that it's something that you have to do individually for individual dogs or individual puppies?
No, actually, I have a standardized crate training plan that I got from Jean Donaldson when I went through her academy. And I have used it on many dogs, including dogs that have crate anxiety. I actually wrote up a version that's split up a little bit into tinier pieces. I've broken it up for the dogs that have severe anxiety.
Hmm.
I like working with a written plan so you know exactly the criteria that you are working on,
Working with.
and then you can keep track of how well it's going, and then you know what your next step is going to be. So I do have a standardized plan, and it's broken up in little tiny increments. First, you need to get the dog into the crate.
Hmm.
And sometimes you could just leave like food in the crate and they'll go in and out on their own. You can lure them in with a piece of food. But the first step, they're free to come and go. Then they've got to get used to the door closing. And then you've got to increase the duration of the door closing. And then, after you close the door, that they're in there for a certain length of time and you're with the dog the whole time.
Right.
And then the next step is get the puppy used to, or the dog used to you actually leaving the room. I pair this with food. So I'm using food to create a positive association. When I start adding a lot of duration, like 10 minutes, the dog will get a con.
Okay.
And I don't think I've ever had a dog that I couldn't get crate trained. And they get crate trained pretty quick. And in
Yeah.
fact, I've got some video at the shelter of dogs that were breaking out of their crate and we couldn't get out of the crate.
Oh,
So
wow.
with this training method, so yeah, it works pretty good. And
Yay.
it's a great step-by-step protocol that works
Great.
really well.
And so we at Two Paws Up Dog Training, we are now referring all of our separation and anxiety cases to you. We have certainly referred a number of puppies to you as well, who we felt were either over the top with anxiety for their age, or we just felt like they needed a little more help, a little extra help, little extra never hurts. So how can our students who might be watching this, if they think that they would like some additional help, or they're worried that maybe they have a pandemic puppy or a pandemic dog, where they're going, oh, maybe I need to get on this. How can our students best contact you?
Okay, well, the best thing to do would be to go to my website. It's www.godog, the number 4 training at .com. Sorry, I was
Okay.
thinking my email address.
Yep.
Um, and there you can go to separation anxiety, and there's a heading that, well, it says services separation anxiety, and there's a form that you can fill out and contact me. Or you can just shoot me an email at godogtraining@gmail.com.
Perfect. So, and so what I'm going to do is in the links or in the comments under this Facebook Live, I'm going to put your information on there so that anybody who is watching this video, they'll actually be able to get those links off of there. We do have your information as well at the training center. So when we get those calls or those emails, we are sending them directly to you. And I think it's great because we're able to help more students and certainly more dogs. And I know both you and I are in it for the dogs. It's our number one priority. So
Sure.
that's where my heart lies. That's where your heart lies. And we love seeing the human side of it too when we do have those those successes, however small they may be. So
For sure.
anything else you'd like to share with our Facebook Live people for tonight before I say thank you, because this was awesome.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed it too. Not really, although I would like to mention, because we were talking about how you have your dog sleep in the bed and
Yeah.
I have my dog sleep in the bed. There is a myth that if you have your dog sleep in the bed, they're more prone to separation anxiety, or that it's going to be harder to modify. So I would like to dispel that myth because that's actually been researched. Paying a lot of attention to your dog, sleeping with your dog, taking your dog places, positive reinforcement training, letting your dog walk on leash in front of you. None of those things have anything to do with separation anxiety. So just wanted to dispel that myth there.
Good, and that's awesome because I didn't even think about that, but you're absolutely right. I've had people coming from, other trainers who have said, well, the trainer said the reason this happened is because of, you and I both know that that isn't necessarily the truth. Do you think there are some breeds who are more predisposed to separation issues?
There's been some research, and there are some breeds, off the top of my head. I think Vizslas were one. I think maybe there were a few where they're noticing more. Right now, I have almost every dog that I have is a little shaggy dog.
Little
I
shaggy
don't know
dog?
if there's, I have two golden doodles, but then again, they're really popular. So I
Sure.
don't know if there's, more the population than other breeds, more separation anxiety cases with them. But
The
yeah, they really don't know what causes it. There probably is a genetic component. There environmental factors. One thing I know for sure is the owners are not causing the problem. So
Right.
even the owners that haven't desensitized the dog, they haven't caused the problem. They just really haven't addressed it yet.
Addressed it. Got it. And I tend to think of the herding breeds as more predisposed to, separation
Yeah,
issues.
that's true too. And I've heard German shepherds, which I believe because I've
Yeah.
had many shepherds, and I can't tell you how many shepherds I tripped over outside the bathroom door. They follow you everywhere. And
I
yeah,
call those
oh,
I
sorry,
call
go ahead.
them me. That's okay. I call 'em me and my shadow dogs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So, which is great. So, well, Phyllis, this has been wonderful. I'm so glad you agreed to come on and do this Facebook Live with me because I think we've covered a lot of really good information. It's certainly very timely given the pandemic and how much time people are spending at home. And hopefully, Illinois is going to get back to some semblance of normalcy.
Mhm.
So we are going to see more and more dogs who I think are just challenged with the owner's absence, maybe not full-blown separation anxiety, but it's great to know that we have a resource in you for those dogs, and we've given our clients some really good information on what the separation anxiety complex looks like, and I think we covered puppies really really well. So I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah, and if people want to go to my website and look for a blog, that it's the one and only blog. I just started blogging, but it does talk about separation anxiety during the pandemic and how you can get your dog prepared for the inevitable departures that you're going to be doing, how you can prepare them now, and gets into separation anxiety, kind of summarizes what we talked about here. So they can check
Great.
that out as well.
And are you okay? Because I do a blog too, and so every once in a while I'll find a blog that's very timely. Are you okay if I send out a link to your blog in our general email or
Oh,
our
no, that'd be
email
great.
marketing? Okay,
Oh,
great.
thank you. Yeah, I'd
Super.
appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, no, because I
Get
think
the
that's
word
great
out.
information. So, yeah, I think it's great information. Well, Phyllis, thank you. I appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll be communicating again here in the not too distant future with everything that we've got going on. So, in 2 weeks, we'll be doing another Facebook Live. Not quite sure what our topic will be, but if you have something that you are interested in hearing, or if there's a special topic that you want me to find a guest trainer in, I'm happy to do that. So everybody knows how to get a hold of me, Brenda at twopaws-up.com. And so I will say good night. And again, thank you, Phyllis, so much for being on our Facebook Live with us. So
Oh, my pleasure. It's been great.
thank you so much. Take care.
All righty. Bye bye.
Bye bye.